it. So here we go. Oh, I keep forgetting. Can someone post the Mentimeter link? There's a, well, I guess I'll send that. So there's a link here. If you haven't done so, to the Mentimeter, that's you click on that link and you can add your 3 most important values. So if you click on that, hopefully everybody's been able to do it. So great. Welcome to our 5-week Empathy Circle Facilitation Training. Really glad to see all of you. I'm Edwin Rutch, the director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and I've been connecting with all of you in terms of setting up this cohort. In this cohort, I'll be the producer, means that I'm sort of organizing and kind of doing some of the more of the background material for setting up this cohort. And we have this cohort is optimized for Extinction Rebellion. That's the environmental group, XR for short, but you don't have to be a member of XR to be taking part in this. So I just want to let you know that. I'd like to begin by just introducing some of what we have different roles here. As I mentioned, I'm the producer, sort of organizing the cohort. We have 4 trainers. So we have Anne, if you want to wave, are you there? There's Anne. We have Dean, and we have Bill and Lou. They're all very experienced in the process. We have a great group of trainees who are learning to present this training. We have Graham and Michelle, Larry, Ben, Celine, and Dominic. I think that's it. Yeah, so they're here to kind of support us and be holding, doing some of the different sections. So with that, I get to step back now and kind of do more of the background sort of work. So I'm going to pass it on to Bill, who's going to do the introductions here. Take it away, Bill.
Great, thanks, Edwin. So right now we'd like to do short check-ins, about 30 seconds, and just tell us your name, location. If you have any XR affiliation, it's not necessary again, but if you do, you might want to talk about that, and why you're interested in taking the training. I'll call on people, and I guess we're going to start with the trainer or trainees to introduce to role model. So I'll just go around my screen. Lou, could you?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Lou Zweier. I'm from Northern California in the USA, and I've been doing this work with Edwin for probably 4 years, something like that. And Bill and I actually helped develop this training together and put on a dozen or more cohorts. And it feels good now to be stepping back a little bit and to be supporting the development of other trainers. And they're fabulous people here who've been doing this for a long time. So I won't be actually doing a lot in the session today, but I'm really happy to be here, and I'm excited about all the people who have joined to learn about this process. It's really effective, and I look forward to experiencing it with you.
Okay, great. And I'll just go and I guess Kathy said that there's something wrong with my audio. Can people hear me okay? Yeah, okay, so most people can. Okay, so you might want to try to maybe up the volume or something like that. Okay, sorry. Celine, could you introduce?
Well, hello, everybody. I live on the west coast of the United States. It's morning for me, and I am here to do one of my very favorite things, which is participate in empathy circles and get to know new people like yourselves. Thank you very much. I'm happy to meet you and be with you and complete.
Thanks, Celine. Graham?
Yeah, hello, everybody. I'm very, very happy to be here. A bit like Celine, it's one of the favorite things that I'm doing. It's a tremendous learning experience. And yeah, if I was given the time, I could talk for ages on this, but I'd rather not do so. Let's experience what we're trying to do. Anyway, I'm happy to be here and look forward to the session. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Graham. Dominic.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dominic. I'm from San Francisco, California in the USA. This is my third time taking the training, the second time as a trainee. And I'm just excited to be here. This environment lines up with like who I want to be. I want to become a psychologist, so lines with my values. So yeah, very excited to be here.
Great. Thanks, Dominic. Michelle. You're muted, Michelle. There we go.
Yeah, I just sorry, I'm Michelle from Galway in Ireland, and really grateful to be on this cohort. And it's my, I don't know, like probably 5th or 6th or something cohort, and I keep doing them because I really believe that they can make a really big difference in society. And yeah, thanks for having this cohort.
Larry? Larry?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you say.
That's okay.
Thank you, Bill. So I'm Larry in Florida. I love the empathy circles. And my claim is that the empathy is the missing link to human beings living in peace on a planet that they actually take care of. So let's go.
Great. Thanks, Larry. Dean.
Hi, I'm Dean from XR Plymouth in the Southwest. I've been involved in empathy cafes since number 4. I haven't done all of them, but I've done quite a few iterations now, and I find that each time I go through the process, I learn something new. So that's why I love keep doing the process again and again, because it helps me build that empathy muscle and build that listening ear, which is all important about getting that culture of empathy going. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Ben?
Thanks. I'm Ben. I'm in Edinburgh, Scotland, in the UK. Pretty new to empathy circles, and it's a process of discovery for me. And I think there's a lot of different layers of learning, and each interaction, each encounter, each circle is unique. But some of the reason I'm here is in my role as a mediator and conflict practitioner to look at the ways that to learn about how we connect and understand each other, and how we communicate, and to do that. Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. Anne.
I'm Anne, and I'm in the UK. I'm involved in XR for 2.5 years, and in empathy circles for most of that time as well. And I am sort of really impressed by this process and committed to growing it in the world. And welcome you all here, and welcome the new people. And I hope this is a valuable, useful experience for you.
Great. Thanks, Anne. Prasanna.
Hi everyone, I'm Prasanna. My name means happiness. It's a Hindi word, and I'm from India, and it's late night out here. It's 10:30. I have participated in 2 empathy circles, and Graham was my trainer in both of them. Hi, Graham. So eventually I'm a very curious person, and when I start something, I really want to complete the cycle. Yeah. And that's why I was like, okay, what's the next step after the cycle or the circle? Let's go for a facilitator training. So I took the next step and I came here. 2 reasons being, first, definitely I wanted to complete the cycle, but second of all, also I joined this particular cohort for one reason, because currently I'm an environmental lawyer, and when I got to know there is a group of people who are working on environmental issues respectively, so I got more curious. I'm like, oh my God, this is the right group I should start my training with. So yeah, so these are the 2 reasons. Thank you.
Welcome. We're glad to have you. Cecilia.
Hi. I'm really grateful for the persistence of Edwin to keep sending messages and that you have these courses. I have been a bit too busy to focus, but I really hope to have an easier task of finding people to practice with, because I really want to learn. I've been tried to do it on the phone, so I'll show you what I did this weekend. So that's where I am, and I'll pass on to next. Thank you.
Sure. Joelle?
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. I've participated in some empathy cafes and one previous training, and I still feel like there's so much to learn and gain from this process. I'm interested in the way that empathy heals our brains in trauma recovery, and ways that I can offer brain healing empathy to the people around me.
Great. Well, welcome. Eric?
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric. I'm in Austin, Texas, United States. Empathy is seems to me as to be like an essential part of the work and the type of world that I want to live in. I'm kind of dipping my toes in the nonviolent social change scene here in my my city, and it feels like empathy, and particularly like structured, systematized ways to open that up, is almost like a non-negotiable essential. So I'm really happy to be here and learn that.
Great. Welcome. Sally, how you doing? Can you do an intro?
Hi. Yeah, Kathy's Valley. It's kind of on the way to Yosemite. Started with nonviolent communication, and I've kind of discovered that the Empathy Circle is very simple and doable. Even I'm thinking from young age to old age. My intention was to work with my husband and my family, but it's kind of expanded into a bigger thing. And I have had one facilitator training, and think the more you have, the better.
Great. Thanks, Sally. Julia?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Giulia from Milan, Italy. This is the second training I'm joining. I really learned a lot in the other one. I think I know that I have to learn a lot more. And yeah, I really like these empathy circles, because I think they've been very beneficial to me on a personal level, and also I think they can help me to build skills and that I can use to support people around me and my community in a way. So thanks.
Great to have you, Julia. Kathy?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kathy from Houston, Texas in the US, and I'm here because I'm part of an organization that's building structures for peace, or wants to, and I wanted to offer something to our network that was healing. And Lou told me about this, and I tried it Saturday, and I was just blown away by the simplicity and the beauty of it. So I'm here to learn.
Great, Kathy. Great to have you. And Cynthia?
Everybody, I'm Cynthia Ganote. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky in the US. I am a sociology professor teaching race, class, gender, and sexual inequalities work. And I have for my whole career felt that the empathy piece, teaching students both in my formal and informal classes, cultivating empathy was important, learning deeper empathy myself, having empathy as a part of understanding people across difference was just absolutely crucial. So I've just attended 2 Empathy Circle cafes. This is my first cohort, and I am just delighted to be part of this circle. Thank you.
Well, we're delighted to have you. Thank you. And I'm Bill Filler. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been working with Edwin for about, I guess, 4 years, both doing these trainings online. As Lou said, I helped co-design the facilitation training. Yeah, and I'm really excited to be here. when I look out, I'm pretty depressed about what's happening sociologically and emotionally with our world. And we've got to turn this ship around. And as I look around this screen, you are just the people that I expect to do it. So thanks all, and great appreciation. And I'll give it to Edwin to introduce himself.
Oh, Edwin Rutch, in San Francisco Bay Area. And I just feel that the empathy circle is a really simple practice that's really the gateway to a lot of other empathy building practices, and just have the goal of teaching everyone in the world how to do it. Simple goal. It's only 7 billion something people to go.
Okay. And I see we have Meena Patel who just joined us. Meena, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Could
Sorry.
you do like a really short introduction, like where you are and why you're interested?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm in Chicago. I am interested. I've done one, session already, the first training, but I just kind of feel like I wanted to do another one just to, be better at it. And I enjoyed doing it because I was trying to practice these empathy skills in my own life, and also to teach other people.
Great. Thank you, Meena. All right. And I'm going to pass it on to Graham, who'll talk about the course purposes and objectives. Graham, take it away.
And my video's off. So sorry about that. It's good that we can laugh. Thank you. So yeah, my little talk for a minute or so is about the purpose and the learning outcomes of this session. And the basic purpose is to, or the general purpose is to create a culture of empathy. But coming down to the individual, it's also to experience the atmosphere of empathy and to learn to know how to actually create that atmosphere. And within that, the learning outcomes are to become familiar with developing the goals and values and core structure of the empathy circle and the empathic process, so that you can guide other people through this process. And number 2 is to deepen your skills as a facilitator. And amongst those skills is the ability to cope with challenges. It's because it's the challenges that's going to throw you off course. And then to discover your strengths and weaknesses as a facilitator. I've talked about that already, I beg your pardon. And while you're in this training environment, to establish some strong bonds and a sense of community with other people in these circles. And the next one is for me to describe the arc of this course. In other words, the steps that we are going, the broad steps that we're going to go through. So the first session is to review the core values of the culture of empathy. And here we've put our values into the Mentimeter, and we will be discussing the different ways in which we each handle and deal with those values. The second session is to focus on practicing the how-to of an empathy circle, describing the processes of speaker and listener. In the third session, the third session is not only to demonstrate the how-to, but also to begin the process of experiencing challenges. The fourth session, you discuss challenges to a greater degree. And then in the fifth session is we discuss the integration of your learning and take the opportunity of taking some feedback about your experience. And so that's the 5 sessions that we'll be going through. And I now pass on to Dean.
Thank you, Graham. The Empathy Circle, it's part of a larger vision of a culture of empathy. That is a vision of nurturing mutual empathy between all people of the world, as well as humans and nature. The values are still a work in progress. Some of the core values include empathy, of course. It's at the core of the culture of empathy. Most basically, it means sensing and feeling into the experience of others, And also there is self-empathy, it's in sense and feeling into one's own experience. Then we have mutuality. We aspire to a reciprocal empathy between all people. We also have openness. Openness to expressing oneself and open to listening to others. We have care. Having a sense of what is necessary for the health, wealth, and well-being of oneself and others. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list, and I'm going to pass you on to Edwin now, who will come up with the 3 core values that have come on to the Mentimeter. Edwin.
Okay, thanks, Dean. So we had sent out a link where you could fill out your 3 most important values. So in order to show, we created a word cloud of that. And let me just show that on the screen. Hopefully, whoa, is that the right link? No, sorry, stop share. That was the wrong one. I wanted to share this other one. There it is. So hopefully, yep, there we go. So everybody shared their values, their 3 values. So you can see that empathy was quite central. Care, honesty, respect, compassion, mutuality, connection, humility, kindness. So these are all the different values that each of us have and are bringing to this cohort. And what we're wanting to do today is like examine what our values are and how our values relate to a culture of empathy. So it's important when we empathize to really sense where people are, kind of hear where they are, what's what's important to them, and that's what we're doing here, just hearing what's important to you. And so next, we're going to go keep those values in mind. And what we're going to do next is where we're going next is to Dominic, we're going to go into how to take part in an empathy circle. And we're going to explain the breakout room and how you're going to apply how this is going to be part of the discussion, your values and how they relate to a culture of empathy. So Dominic, do you want to?
Yeah,
sure.
Sounds good. Thanks, Edwin. So I'm going to go over the basic skeleton of the empathy circle. So as you all might know already, probably, there's 3 roles. There's the active speaker, active listener, and the silent listener. So the active speaker will express a thought on their mind or relate to the prompt. For example, I'm in empathy training and I'm having a lot of fun. The active speaker will reflect back the essence of that thought and say something like, I hear you're in empathy training, have a lot of fun. And it'll go back and forth for about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the time limit we set. After that 3 to 5 minutes is done, the active speaker will say, I feel fully heard. The active listener becomes the speaker and picks the next listener, and it goes around in a circle until whenever it's done, maybe an hour or so. But yeah, so I'll pass that on to Michelle to talk about the breakout rooms.
Gladly, Dominic, thanks very much. So now we're going to go into our breakout rooms to take part in an empathy circle, and the topic is going to be, how does one of your values relate to empathy and a culture of empathy? So and it can be like whatever that's alive for you. So the trainees are the trainers or a trainee will facilitate the circle, and you're going to have 5 minutes turns. We'll have till like an hour and a half to the top of the hour, and then we'll come back into this like big room to debrief. So I just put the topic there into the chat, and very nice circle.
Okay, great. Thanks, Michelle. So I created some rooms. So the first one will be facilitated by Ben, and then Graham, the next room, and Michelle, room 2. We have room 4 will be Celine, and room 5 is Dominic. So those are the facilitators, and some of the other trainees and trainers would be in each of those groups. And as Michelle said, we have an hour and a half. I'll give a 10-minute warning, about a 10-minute warning before we come back into the full group for a debrief. And so I just reiterate that the topic is how do your values, one of those values that you put up there, how does it relate to empathy and a culture of empathy? And I think this is a really important for being able to discuss when we're out and, you know, with others, and people talk about what values are important to them, that we can make the relationship to their values to empathy. And was that something, Lou? Or
yeah, I just want to make a comment about that too. The other place that you will need that, or that will become really helpful, is as a facilitator of a circle. If you have someone objecting to the process or saying they think it should go a different way, the values of a culture of empathy are part of the reason why we do think, why the empathy circle is structured the way that it is. So it helps you explain to people why the structure is the way that it is.
Yeah, great. So it's those are two good reasons. And I'm going to just, since we have a few minutes before we start, I'm going to just tell a quick story of how this can be helpful. Lou is mentioning it within the context of facilitating an empathy circle, but for myself, I'm more on the democratic, political side. And I went out to Republicans, to a Republican convention, to ask them what their values were, and how I wanted to find out how their values related to the value of empathy. So I went there and I said, "Oh, tell me what values are important to you." And for them, I was speaking with a group of young Republicans, and they said protection is important to us. We're going to protect ourselves, and it kind of fits in with the gun culture too. That you need guns to protect ourselves. And I did empathic listening like we do in the circle. And I said, "Oh, tell me more." And I just reflected back what I was hearing. And I heard about the importance for them of safety and security. And then I said, "Oh, so what you're protecting yourself against is people who are not empathic with you. So if people were empathic with you, you wouldn't have to protect yourself, because they would be listening to you." And they said, "Oh, yeah, I guess empathy is important." So there was a connection from their value of protection to the value of empathy. And at that point, I was able to make that connection. And then they said, "Oh, this is important." And then the discussion became, how can we work together to create a more empathic culture and society? So we had that common connection. So that's just an example. So you can, in your circle, you can talk about your values and how they relate to empathy and that culture. So here we go. We're headed here. We're going to open those rooms, and
so do we come back at 12 o'clock your time?
Pacific time. That's in 1.5 hours. So we have yeah. So here we go. And there'll be one group staying here, which is the 4 of us. So, yeah. Ben?
Yeah, thanks. Let's dive straight in. Edwin and Anne, I know a little bit, have spoken to before. Kathy, I think this is the first time that we're meeting. And so I'm wondering, I'd like to ask you, would it be useful to, for one of us or for me to describe the structure of the empathy circle again, or to explain how it works, or are you happy for us to get straight into practice?
Yeah, I can get straight into practice.
Yep, super. Yeah, okay. Then if the question is, how does one or more of your values relate to empathy or a culture of empathy? I'll start in kind of active listening, active reflecting. Does anyone know that they're ready to speak first? Want to go first?
I'll go first.
Super. Okay. And I'll time. Are you ready? Yeah. I set a timer for 5 minutes, so that's on. I'm listening.
Great. So I love the question, how do our values relate to empathy? And I loved that part of preparing for this, we had to choose 3 values, which was very difficult to do. And I re-evaluated my values and found some different definitions that I really liked, that I'd like to share with everybody.
Super, thanks for pausing. So you're saying you love this question and you love this process where we were asked to choose 3 values and to note those. And in choosing those values, you kind of reevaluated them. And then I think you said, so you're kind of ready to describe them, to explore them.
Yes. So I found some wonderful definitions, and I haven't really revisited my values in a long time. I just kind of know what they are in a general sense, right? And so I found one called on presence. And this particular definition I love. It says to be there for another person in such a way that through your own self-knowledge and inner wisdom, they are able to perceive themselves with increased clarity. So I love that definition. I think it encompasses a lot of stuff, including empathy, because I think empathy does allow people to understand who they are and what they're saying, and maybe take it to a different level even.
And so you just finished by linking this particular definition of presence to empathy, and saying, well, you think empathy does allow people to understand themselves and to understand what they're saying. And you started by saying this process of kind of thinking, well, you know, what are my values? That's not something that you'd visited for some time, and so you had been through this process of kind of revisiting that, and this particular definition of presence had spoken to you.
Yeah. And so how I think it allows people to see more of who they are and maybe go deeper into what they're thinking and feeling is because we're a mirror for them. We just reflect who they are, right? We reflect what they're saying. We get them in a way that allows them to settle and trust and maybe even open themselves more, be more vulnerable.
And so I think you're talking about the empathy circle process, the empathy circle practice, and relating that also to presence and empathy, and this idea of mirroring. So kind of in this practice, kind of becoming a mirror for someone else, so they're able to meet themselves or see themselves.
Yeah. And the other definition I'll share that I loved, and these are 2 new values for me. I mean, they're part of me, but I didn't see them as really core values. The other one is contemplation. And the definition I found was the self-discipline and art of meditative reflection that prepares you for intimacy with others, and that gives you a sense of being part of something bigger than yourself. So when I think of that, I think that when we're with people and we hear who they are, that thing right there just allows us to be something that's bigger than ourselves because we're connected, interconnected, interdependent.
And so moving on to the other values, which you were choosing, the one you had chosen was contemplation, and the definition that you found for contemplation speaks also to an idea of connection or interconnectedness or interdependence, and so links the value of contemplation to, you didn't say service, but sort of participation in something outside oneself, or kind of opening to something outside oneself.
Yeah, to connect with something bigger than ourselves. And something, as you were talking, made me think of something else, the intimacy, right? And one thing I noticed on Saturday is, and I have forgotten this, is that there's great intimacy in really being present and listening to another person. and especially if they become more vulnerable as they're being listened to. That's a very intimate process.
That was the timer, so I'll finish here. But so you were clarifying, contemplation linked to sort of being connected to something bigger than yourself, and returning to this idea of intimacy and talking about, I think this practice and saying, well, when you're with another person and you're listening, then are you listening in such a way that they are opening and becoming more vulnerable, and what is the connection between that and process of kind of cultivating intimacy, building intimacy.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Thanks. So then as listener, so I'll become a speaker and I'll choose a listener. Edwin, will you listen?
Yes, listening.
Thanks, I'm setting a timer. Okay, timer's on. So I'm just taking a moment to kind of shift. It feels like I'm kind of shifting into a different space. And there's part of me that wants to pick up some of what Kathy was talking about. And then I'm also wanting to speak to the question, which is choosing one of the values that I put into the Mentimeter.
Okay, so first you're wanting to settle, give it grounded. Second, you're wanting to build on what Kathy said, and then add to that third your own values that you added to the Mentimeter.
Yes. And yet I notice kind of finding myself kind of in a rhythm of speaking and sort of wanting to, kind of torn. I want to sort of carry on speaking and find out what I'm speaking to or who I'm speaking to and what I'm going to say. There's also part of me that kind of wants to pause and see what's there.
Mm-hmm. So you're wanting to pause and see what arises.
Yes. I think what's on top of not wanting to stay silent for too long, and one of the values I chose fairly quickly was vitality. So I'm interested to explore, what my thoughts might be around, well, how is vitality as a value connected to empathy, connected to this process?
So your value that you put down was vitality, and you're thinking, how does that relate to empathy?
Yeah, and I think that can also, maybe I can pick up there from what Kathy was saying as well, even about intimacy and about interdependence, because there's vitality, I think, well, I guess vitality can mean a kind of an animation or kind of a liveliness or a kind of, exuberance or joyfulness. But if vitality has life at its root, it also necessarily is going to speak to this kind of interdependence and this vulnerability. Life is vulnerable and connected.
Yeah, so vitality has a sort of a quality of aliveness to it, and it also has I think you're saying it like an intimacy, and like I got that.
Yeah, so I wonder in some settings, I'm imagining there might be some conversations or some cultures or some settings where, for example, people can feel connected to their vitality, to that animation, that can flourish. Perhaps where people are feeling safe or feeling less defensive, feeling valued. And I think that's how I would look for a connection with empathy, because that's...
So you're saying the connection might be that if there's empathy, people feel safe, and within that safety, then vitality can emerge.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, yeah. And the second one I chose was flexibility, which kind of surprised me because I'm not sure, hasn't been high up on my list of values before, but it was there. So I suppose really what was kind of underpinning that, I was thinking of something like responsiveness or something like sensitivity. And so I guess that it's possible to link that back to listening, in a culture of empathy. I imagine there's maybe less, not necessarily flexibility, but where people are able to bring themselves and to participate, then if there is, if the people and the structures are kind of responsive, then yeah, perhaps responsive is a better word than flexible.
Yeah, so you were thinking initially flexibility is the word. I mean, it sounds like that's what you put down, and then you're thinking maybe it's more being responsive to, and then that's in the empathy circle that that you're able to be flexible or be responsive to maybe what is arising. Is that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Or who people are just.
Yes. That's yeah, thank you. I feel fully heard. That's the timer.
Then I'll speak to Anne. Okay, yeah, so my values already are empathy, mutuality, and the main core ones. That's sort of already but I think the thing what I wanted to speak to is all these different values and how they relate to a culture of empathy. That it seems to me that there's this spiral aspect, a virtuous cycle, I guess, of, if you have empathy, you're willing to listen to others, that it leads to, and especially if it's mutuality, it leads to trust, which leads to, other values. So I guess it's that virtuous spiral of values.
So for you, your main values are empathy and mutuality, and basically the core values of empathy, and how you relate that culture of empathy in this virtuous circle, that one leading on and building another, and that the interconnection of them.
Yeah, it's I guess it's a virtuous cycle or spiral, where it seems to me that the empathy and the mutuality, I mean, empathy, if I'm able to empathize with someone and hear them, that's like the first step. If they're willing to listen to me and have that mutuality, that's sort of the next step. And that creates like a sense of trust, which, with trust and intimacy, that leads to more openness and more transparency, which leads to greater intimacy, and I think presence is part of that too. You don't have to remember all these different relations, that's quite a lot. But the presence is also, the empathy is tied in with presence. So it's like one thing leads to the other, and it's that leads to that contemplation, or that seeing the bigger interconnectedness. So it does seem to me, for me, it's like that empathy is sort of this core bud flower that it keeps growing and leads to a virtuous cycle, I guess.
Yeah, so you went into more depth about this virtuous circle leading from these very core things, like, for example, if you see empathy as the bud and mutuality. So the first step is that you yourself have empathy and you're present with that. And then the second step, if it's there, would that was a mutual thing, that the other person would also, be reciprocating that and be part of that. And then through those two core values, you get this circle of honesty and intimacy that develops. And through that, then there would be increasing openness and transparency. And you see some of this is like, it's actually like your presence, being present with one another.
Wow, that was very, very present, very nice reflection. Really enjoyed that reflection. And so it's that virtuous cycle that leads to collaboration, and I see that as sort of core to and peace. I'm going to throw peace in there for Kathy. She's from the Peace Alliance. So it leads, that's what leads to peace, right? And so I just visually, I see this virtuous cycle, and the opposite direction is you don't feel heard in a group. You start feeling anxious, and then it just leads to sort of a negative spiral in itself. And then you close off, you feel less open. And so I see kind of visually, I see two different directions we can go with, so yeah, just throw that out.
So additionally, you talked about the what comes out of what you were saying before is you that get this collaboration, and you wanted to bring in for Kathy, knowing that she was the connection with peace, but peace being a really big part of this, so you've got this positive virtuous cycle, but you see too that there's a negative, the negative going in the opposite direction. When people aren't heard, that they then begin to feel anxious and kind of constrained, and negative spirals. So you get the opposite effect.
And what I love about, what I love about this topic is I start seeing the relationships of this positive spiral. Everybody's bringing different components of this positive spiral. So I really enjoy this part of the training where we sort of explore the relationship of these different values.
Yeah, so this is really one of your favorite parts of the training, is looking at these values and seeing all the different positive values that people bring and how they work together, and you have in mind, and it kind of contrasts the opposite, the negative.
I feel very heard. Thank you, Anne.
Thanks, Edwin. So, Kathy, would you be happy to listen to me, please? Yes. Yeah, it's when it comes to doing those, it's like I really admired and respected the depth, I imagine the depth of your thinking about it and research, and that you went away and found some definitions. And in many ways, I've done the opposite. I've kind of think there are lots of different words that I could put there, and it kind of doesn't matter too much which ones I choose. I'll pause.
So you enjoyed listening to the values I presented, and you appreciated that I took some time and thought in doing that. And for you, there's a lot of different values, and you didn't necessarily want to stick to a couple. There are more than that for you.
And it was almost that I was doing the opposite, that you went and researched and came up with some very detailed definitions, and from those even deepened your connection with your values. And mine was more of a kind of, not superficial, but just like there are lots of words I could have pulled in and used there. But I really appreciated hearing yours.
So you appreciated the definitions that I presented, and that I did a lot of research to come up with those, and you felt like you had a more superficial study of the values or presentation of preparing for the call.
Yeah, and for me, one of mine was respect, because I think to be human, and as a human, and to be human, it's really, really important to be respectful of one another. And with that come all sorts of other things. It's like openness and humility and patience, kindness, all sorts of things come in. And another one of the ones I put was to be attentiveness. And when I heard what Edwin was saying. I think probably it's more a matter of really being present, really being there with your intention, that you're really focused and thinking and listening about the person you're with. I've said a lot, I'll pause.
Okay. So one of your values is respect, and from that flows a lot of others for you. Kindness was one of them that you mentioned. Openness is very important to you. And yeah.
I think in order to be, as a human being, to be respectful of one another, it's essential. And along with respects, in order to be respectful, there are all sorts of other things required. Yeah.
So respect is very important for you. A lot of things flow from that, and empathy requires respect.
Yeah, being human requires respect. And being human is not, it's not just about oneself. So it implies mutuality, because we're humans together. It's not possible to be a human being alone.
Right. So being human requires mutuality, because we're not in this alone. We need each other.
And I kind of feel like this is there's so much depth to all of this as well. And it's so important.
Mm. So
I feel the heat rising in there. It's just like quite a lot of passion about it.
Right. So this is very important, and you can feel how important it is in your body because you feel the passion.
Thank you. I feel fully heard.
So that's one complete round. So who was so Kathy, you were listening. So I suppose things change now, or we can change things now. So we don't need to stick in the same sequence. So Kathy, you can become a speaker and choose a listener, and we can proceed from there.
Okay. Edwin, will you be willing?
Listening.
Okay. So in researching the website last night and preparing for today and learning everything I could, some of the challenges I noticed were not drinking like tea or something while we're doing this. And I was drinking my tea yesterday, and so I felt some regret about that.
You were checking the challenges, and there was something about drinking tea that was a challenge, and you feeling regret around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, I'm a therapist, so I really have to be very careful not to ask questions, not to go deeper into the reflections, I think, to really just be completely present and stay where people are at.
So as a therapist, that you have to, you try to just listen to where people are at without going too deep in what they're saying.
Right. Yes. And and I'm not sure if that is a limitation I'm placing on myself, or if that's something I'm going to learn through this, how to reflect in this setting and with this practice.
So you're wanting to, it sounds like you're exploring, how do you reflect within this practice? If you just reflect back what you're hearing people say, or if you can reflect back deeper, kind of go behind the words or go into deeper feelings. And so you're trying to find your way there.
Right. And a lot of things I say, it's a question. It's like, I'm wondering if this, right? I'm wondering if you're feeling this way, or I'm wondering if this is what you're thinking. So I do a lot of questioning, so I know I'm going to have to not do that.
So in your reflection, it sounds like in your work, you'll ask people, you'll sort of name feelings that perhaps they're having, or even the needs, trying to identify those. So you're bringing some of the NVC sort of skills or so, and you're wondering if that's okay within this practice.
Right, right. And at the same time, I'm wondering if it's okay. I also don't think I want to do it. I think I want to just be completely present and reflect. But also, am I withholding a gift if I do think I see something deeper?
So I'm hearing some ambivalence. Do you just, just want to reflect back what you're hearing, but then you also feel, on the other hand, that it's a gift to offer something deeper, and you're kind of a little ambivalent about which direction to go.
Right. And I'm wondering, let me take it someplace else. So one of the things I was reading on the website yesterday and was reminded of was Carl Rogers, and how he taught that, and their studies have been done, that a therapist who listens, I mean, you could not do anything but listen in a session, and that would be enough, right? And I've kind of gotten away from that. So it was nice to have that reminder.
So you saw that Carl Rogers talked about just listening, and sounds like you've gotten away from that. And this is like this reminder just to listen. And so you're kind of exploring that now, or sitting with that.
Yeah. And even before I was reminded of that, I noticed that I was not listening as much. And I think part of it's because I'm feeling a little burnt out. So I've been taking some time off, but it was nice to have that reminder.
So it was a reminder just to listen, see. And feeling a bit burned out. Sounds like you've been taking some time off and feeling burned out. So here's a good reminder to just listen.
And it's so much easier just to listen, right? And be present, rather than think I have to do more than that.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's some ease around that, it's easier just to listen, not feel pressured that you have to do more.
Right, right. Yeah, and I'm very grateful that I found this. As I said, I've been following you for a long time, but I minimized what the contribution that this can make.
So you've been following my work for a long time. You minimize sort of the contribution that kind of this practice can do.
Right, right. Yes.
Sound like that was the time too. So I'll speak to Ben.
Listening.
Yeah, so kind of building on what Kathy said, the goal is for the speaker to feel heard to their satisfaction. So if someone wants to hear, but hear a little bit deeper, maybe they say a feeling, they're expressing a feeling, and but they haven't said it verbally, it's fine to sort of make that, subtle, make some feelings guess there.
So you're building on what Kathy said and responding to her and saying, yes, if the goal is for the person speaking to be fully heard to their satisfaction, to feel fully heard. And so if there's a guess there as to some feeling or something underneath, that's kind of within the frame. Yeah,
so it's really the goal in this situation for me to feel heard, and I'll if I don't feel heard by Ben, by you, Ben, I can just say, no, that's not quite what I'm saying. So it's and even so I'll pause there.
Yeah, so for example, the goal here is for Edwin to feel for yourself to feel fully heard by me, and so if you don't feel fully heard, then you can say, actually, that's not quite it. You didn't get it.
So it might even be good if you can do a feelings guess. You have to sort of sense. So will that work for me? And if it doesn't, it's okay. And you can also do the needs guess. So needs is usually like a feeling behind a feeling. So if there's a feeling of anger, what is the feeling that's behind that? So, and that's the need, behind, or the feeling. So it's fine to make feelings and needs guess within, the NVC sort of context.
So I think you're making an invitation, yeah. So, within this frame, of the empathy circles, you could make a kind of a feelings guess, or even a needs guess. If there was anger or something, what's underneath that, what's behind that feeling of anger, what need is there, like in NVC, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm. And it all starts with Carl Rogers. I always make that point. The NVC is pretty much based on this empathic listening that we're doing here. Carl Rogers did it in a client-therapist relationship. All we're doing is bringing it into a small group relational space. So it's just taking, I think, just the next logical step from where he was.
So you're tracing this back to Carl Rogers as a kind of an originator or founder of something, and NVC, and this is being a development of that, or logical development of that, into bringing that into a relational space rather than simply a dyad.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier than NVC, because NVC takes thousands of dollars to learn, and years to, and even then people seem to still struggle with the practice. And it's good stuff, but I think that you can learn the same thing just by practice and observing others in a context like this. So I'm kind of like going back to basics. I see this as sort of going back to basics.
So this is going back to basics. There's something easy and simple about this compared to, for example, NVC, which might take hours and hours and hours to learn. But in keeping it simple, there's a lot to learn.
And also there's the other part is the culture of empathy, that it's framed not in, hey, everybody's just going for their needs, their own individual needs, but I think can be somewhat narcissistic. It becomes, oh, my needs, it's a constant needs battle. That the goal here is the relationship, it's the relational. So we're looking for a culture of empathy. So how do we work together to create a mutual empathic relationship and culture? And so it has a different vision of I think a larger cultural vision.
And so you're saying, talking about another difference, I think, between what might be happening between a dyad in a, say, Rogerian context and what's happening here, specifically difference between the individual and the collective. So is there a risk that something, by focusing on individual needs, it sort of becomes narcissistic or becomes individualistic, whereas actually this is about developing a culture of empathy, or looking at the relational space?
Yeah, exactly. And we have here, so the means are the end. So we actually are doing it right here. Like, this is a little culture of empathy, so I think the means are the end. So.
And so there's something, maybe something circular about it, or the means and the end are the same. So this, for example, this is the means and the end to a culture of empathy.
Yeah, so I'm really glad Kathy's here, because she brings a lot of sort of insights and all of her piece work. So yeah, so I'm really glad she's here.
Yeah, and you're saying, so I'm really glad that Kathy's here, bringing insights from her work and her piece work in particular.
Yeah, I feel fully heard.
She's here.
Yeah,
thanks. Anne, will you listen?
Happy to, Ben.
I'm just setting a timer. Yeah, so I'd like to kind of returning to the question, and yeah, also wanting to build on what's been said previously. So I want to, kind of want to give myself some space to let what's been said already kind of sink in a little bit, and yeah, gently take my attention to the group here, and also to the question.
So I sense you wanting to kind of settle a little in yourself. You want to attend to what the question is, but also build on what's being said in the circle. But you do want to give yourself space to find that place.
Yes. And one question that comes up for me, so if the goal is here that I'm going to be fully heard, so how do I how do I also work towards that goal here if I'm speaking towards being fully heard? So yeah, there's also part of me that kind of wants to do some listening from somewhere. Yeah, and I don't know what wants to be heard here. And so I realized in this moment there was I was waiting, or yeah, maybe there was some listening to it. I think there was an expectation of hearing Anne reflect, or to hear Anne echo. And one question that's coming up for me is, what was in that space of waiting? You know, what sort of listening was that, or what distinguished it from listening?
So in fact, you had an expectation that I was going to reflect back sooner to you. And then even that space had made you question that and the listening. But you had previously reflected on that as the goal is to be fully heard, then that brings another angle. So what is it you're musing on, what it is you need to do in order to achieve being fully heard, whereas your attention has been more on the listening part. That's what I've sensed.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, is there something to clarify there? Let's see. So yeah, so I noticed in those last few words that you were saying, I was with I think I was with my own unfolding thoughts, and so when the question came up for me, yeah, is that what I said? Is that what I meant? And I wasn't sure. I think my attention had been inside.
So you found that your attention was more inside, and you're not sure that it was with your unfolding thoughts, but maybe you're wondering.
Yeah. So then, the question of like the term responsibility is coming up for me. So, you know, what is responsibility a value? And is it a value that I hold? And if so, how? And what do I mean by responsibility? And what responsibility do I have in having myself fully heard here? How can I be responsible for having myself fully heard? And how would I know? So when we get to the end of these 5 minutes, I might say, yeah, I might say I feel heard, or I feel fully heard, or there's nothing else to say. And so how do I know that? Yeah, that's the timer.
So again, you moved on to one of the values of responsibility, and wondering what your responsibility was to be fully heard or not, and what part that played, whether it sits with you or in having reflected back what the listener has heard from you, and you're wondering, you know, what it is, what it would be at the end in order for you, and you might say you've been heard or fully heard. What does that mean? It's like you're being very well, musing on this process.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard. Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. So my turn. And Edwin, would you listen to me, please?
Yes, listening.
I end up wondering how effectively or how well I hadn't done that piece of reflective listening, having picked up a strong sense of Ben trying to find what I'd sensed was that Ben wanted to kind of find the space to know what to be able to think. Or
yeah, so you're sensing that Ben was trying to sort of connect with himself, find something that was maybe alive for him, and you're just wondering like how well you did in the reflection to maybe support him, or
it was a bit, it felt like it was kind of a bit, yeah. I guess I just didn't feel very good or very comfortable with how well I did there, but I think I will move on rather than spend any more time on that.
yes, you didn't feel like you did a good reflection, weren't reflecting well, but you're gonna move on to another topic.
Yeah, and so I go to do what's alive for me rather than our topic, I think. Excuse me. I feel really, I felt when I arrived quite upset with myself. And I don't feel like I'm showing up with who I really am and who I want to be.
So you're feeling upset with yourself when you showed up because you're not showing up with who you are and who you want to be, and maybe some sadness around that, almost grief.
Yeah. And I guess I'm struggling with kind of my like commitment, what I want to do, and seeing and knowing that I need to take care of myself more, and not good at finding my way with that.
So you're saying that you need to be taking care of yourself more, and that you're just not good at finding your way with taking care of yourself.
And I knew that I didn't want to show up here feeling like as tired as I was. So I let myself have a rest, but I only had like 20 minutes or so for myself to do that. And I found that I slept right through, and I slept through my alarm. And I must have been asleep for 40 minutes. So my alarm would have been going off for 20 minutes. I'm so tired.
So you were feeling tired and you want to take a little bit of a break, and you just your alarm went off for quite a while, and you just slept right through it. And so you're feeling like you really must be tired for that to happen.
Yeah, and life is kind of relentless. It doesn't really, and it feels like that's what the whole world is doing at the moment. We're in a heat wave here, and I'm trying to live my life, like enjoy or live it fully, live it in the present. And it's sunny, and I know it's going to be sunny for a few days, and that's really nice, but actually I know that this is climate change and it's not okay.
So it's really sunny and warm there, and you know that it's from climate change and just feeling a lot of grief about that, maybe what's coming. And so the
Life is
problems.
kind of relentless. Life is relentless. There's no, it would be nice for me to slow down and have some time, but like, that's not what the world's doing.
Yeah, so there's a real relentless quality to life. It just keeps going and going. You just can't kind of get off. It'd be nice to just slow down and maybe take a break or so, but you can't kind of get off of life.
Thank you. It's my time.
Okay, speak to Kathy.
Yes.
Yeah. I was thinking of this satisfaction that Ben was mentioning, and the goal is to be heard to your satisfaction. It's not like you have to be totally fully heard, whatever that means. It's just it's heard enough. Like sometimes people totally botch, what I'm saying, but I feel heard enough, so I feel heard to my satisfaction. So it's not if the person says they feel heard, enough, then that's what the goal is. Yeah.
So in reflecting back to people, it doesn't have to be perfect. If the person feels heard enough, that's enough.
Yeah, and they're sort of, it's sort of the talking about responsibility. It's kind of as a speaker responsibility to say, do I feel heard enough or not? It's like if I say, some people afterwards say, I took part in an empathy circle and I didn't feel heard. And it's like, well, you kept saying you felt heard. It's like it's your responsibility if you felt heard or not. Don't not tell your truth and then complain about being in a circle. So anyway, that's just something.
It's a person's responsibility to be honest and speak up if they're not feeling heard, so that the listener can provide what the speaker is wanting.
Yeah, and just keep going and going, keep sharing. It's like, no, you didn't get it. You didn't get it. This is it. And a lot of times it's even, we don't even know. It's like Ben is trying to connect to his felt experience. I'm trying to connect to my felt. And sometimes I don't even know what my experience is, so you need some time and space to sort of tap into it. Maybe sometimes they don't even know. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't give up. Keep striving to be heard, no matter how that looks.
Yeah, exactly. And the other is the unfolding. What I would like, we have the circle, this training, and I'm thinking we need like a module 2, which is going into the feelings. Like, how do I get better? I do a lot of sort of conceptual sharing. Like, hey, can I share more of my felt experience? Anne's really sharing her grief. It comes really through quite powerfully, and grief and sadness, but also to be, for me, like, how do I feel pretty happy. Like, I feel pretty happy right now. I'm just like, I'm thrilled as the group. I love all the people, here. So I feel two things. I feel quite happy and a little giddy about, hey, this is really great. But I also feel sort of stressed by all the organizational stuff. It's a lot to, I'm tracking all the rooms, making sure everybody, and so so it's two things. It's got a little bit happy and kind of a little concerned, a little anxious, and wish I was calmer in terms of with the organizational stuff, more grounded. I feel like I get a little ungrounded with the organizational stuff.
So you're really happy to be part of what we're doing, and at the same time, there's a lot you have to keep track of. So there's a little bit of anxiety there too. And you're thinking maybe there should be a module 2 to keep moving this maybe deeper and in another direction that will make this even more impactful.
Yeah, I think how do we speak more deeply? And that's where, the work of Marshall Rosenberg with naming feelings and needs, and There's also the work of Jean Genlin, just only speaking from felt experience, like what's happening, where my feelings, and then there's the work of motivational interviewing, dealing with ambivalence. So there's all these different practices build, I think, on what we're doing here, and we can create sort of modules. I think I think that's sort of my cutting edge, is how do I speak more from my felt experience? So yeah.
So you're seeing the value in being able to name feelings and needs, and also be in touch with how it lives in our body. And that's
very much the bodily felt experience. There's this real curiosity. I feel the real curiosity of, oh yeah, like really how do we make it simple so everyone can sort of take it, take those, and all the tools are actually there. All those other practices already have mapped out those pathways quite well. So I don't know if everybody's familiar with focusing, but just sharing the felt experience in the moment. I'm thinking, how do we do that in the circle more? So those are kind of more next step things.
So you have all these ideas from things that work. One of them is focusing, and you're trying to figure out how can you make this all work in a way that's easy for everybody.
Yeah, keep growing. That's it. That's the growth, the value of growth. Yeah, I feel fully heard.
Okay. And would you be willing to listen?
Happy to, Kathy.
Right. So there was a little hesitation in asking you because of you being tired, and it sounds like you're a little overwhelmed with feelings regarding climate change and all of that. But at the same time, I really felt like it would be a contribution to you to ask you to listen.
So you were hesitant to ask me, especially from me being tired and seeming a little overwhelmed. But you also see that it could be a contribution to me to ask me to listen.
Right, yes. And I am an anxious person, not like clinically anxious, but just an anxious person when I feel like I have to do things that I think I have to do it right. And I've just noticed that about myself recently with some different things I'm doing.
So although you're not a clinically anxious person, that you're just an anxious person, and this is more present, or you noticing it when you haven't, that you need or to do things correctly.
Or that I think I need to do things correctly. And so, but one of the things I've noticed about myself that has been a real growth for me is that in the past, if I did something that I thought was not the best thing to do, and there were a lot of people that noticed that, I would be very embarrassed. And it was difficult for me to grow as a result of feeling ashamed and embarrassed.
So you've noticed in the past that there are times when you that the real growth actually happens when it's almost when you need not to be ashamed or embarrassed, but to do it anyway. That's when the growth happens. That's what I'm understanding.
Yes. I think just to tweak that a little bit, I don't feel so ashamed and embarrassed anymore, because when I notice I'm feeling that, I just give myself some compassion. And I remember that I'm coming from my heart, so I can't go wrong if I'm coming from my heart.
So you wanted to sort of correct it a little bit, to tweak it so that you're to achieve being fully heard. that when you give yourself some compassion, if you're feeling some shame or embarrassment, and just to know if it's coming from your heart, it's okay.
Right. Yes. Thank you. And I was given some feedback the other day, and I was surprised how calm I was, how it went right through me. I was not defensive. I agreed with the feedback just right away, because in my body, I knew it was accurate, even though only one or two people might have thought that. And I could have said, okay, well, that's one or two people. I just really thought the feedback was accurate.
So recently you've been in a situation where you've been given some feedback, and it's almost that you've surprised yourself by how calm you were with it. You knew that there was truth in this feedback, and you felt it go through your body.
Yeah. I think Edwin mentioned earlier about wanting to be more fully in our bodies and let our bodies, I took that to mean let our bodies speak to us and trust what our body is saying. And I'm trying to do more of that also.
You've taken something from what Edwin was saying earlier about us being more in our bodies, and you feel this is important too. I might have missed a bit of that, so do add in.
No, I felt heard. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. I do feel it's important, and I don't think it's something necessarily natural for us. And I think it's because, we grow up ashamed of our bodies. As women, our bodies have to be perfect. And sometimes our intuition, we don't trust that.
So that was time, Ben, was it? Yeah. That you do think this is an important issue, and it's not easy for us. And you referred to about how it is for women. We can feel shame because of an expectation for our bodies to be perfect, or are not being easily able to trust our intuition.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Kathy. Ben, would you listen to me, please?
Yes, just let me set the timer, and then I'm listening.
Yeah, I think I've got to the point of thinking, I was speaking before, was one of my values was about being present. And when I said that, I was saying it from the perspective that I feel it. To be human, to be being human amongst humans, that's what we need to do. We need to be there. We need to be present with each other. And it was and that was from the sense of for the other person. However, I also really believe it's really important for other human beings that we're really present for ourselves as well. Like that we're showing up in who we are and where we are, not in a pretense, not in the space of only the other people are more important than oneself, because what you bring as yourself is needed by everybody. We need to be ourselves. I'll pause so you don't get lost.
And I wonder if, as you were finishing, you were beginning to speak about something like equality. But as you were starting, I saw you kind of gathering yourself and picking something up from previously, speaking about presence. one thing that stood out for me as you were speaking was this for, so like present for ourselves or present for the other person. And I heard you say in terms of being human, or in terms of being, maybe you said being fully human. That's something we need to do, to be there for ourselves and the other person.
I think that what's happened with our cultures is that we're not there for each other. So we're not really present when we're with other people. In general, that isn't the case. We're not present for them, but also we're not really bringing ourselves, because it isn't a safe space. In general, it's not safe to be open about yourself and really be present yourself in who you are or where you are, because it's not safe.
So hearing you settle in this conclusion that it's, that it's not safe, and exploring this idea, but in our culture or in our cultures, that is not, it's usually not safe to be ourselves, or to be open.
But the big part before that was that we aren't usually there for each other. I mean, I can have a conversation when I don't have an. It's rare that there's mutuality, that the other person is also there, other than for themselves. So people are quite shocked if you really listen to them, if you're really present for them. It's not what they're accustomed to. So that part is really important too, and that comes first. But I was moving on and talking about that there's a huge value too in showing up and being in your heart, who you are, where you are.
So I think you were clarifying and say there's something which comes first. There's something really important here, for you in sharing your experience. That when you get present to people, that you see people's shock, when you're really listening to people.
It's not so much shock, but if people are really listened to, it immediately makes a difference to them very easily. When people feel heard, it's really important. It's really precious, because it doesn't happen very often. But there's an element too that, was that time already, Ben? Sorry. I wasn't sure that I looked away. I'll just stop there.
And so I think you're clarifying and saying, yeah, it's not so much shock, but it's, there's something really precious in that moment. There's something rare in that moment. There's something valuable in listening, that you see people appreciate.
Thank you. I feel really heard.
Do I become, no, you, I was listening, yeah, so I become a speaker. Kathy, will you listen? Yeah, I wanted to pick up that as well. Edwin was mentioning, kind of module 2, or these kind of add-ons to this practice, or kind of finding, keep the where's the growth, where's our growth, where is the culture of empathy growing? Yeah, I'll stop there and catch a breath.
So you're also wondering about the growth of a culture of empathy, and that has you curious.
Yes. As you say that, I'm wondering how I might get into sensing. Yeah, noticing I'm kind of looking up here. What am I looking for? So I feel like I'm open to receiving something. And I have a story about that, and the story is, you know, I think I can use this space to kind of begin to listen to myself. But what is it that I want to say to you, Kathy, for example, or what is it that I want to say to this circle? I'm not sure.
So you're noticing you're looking up and wondering what it is you're trying to see or bring into your awareness so that you know what you want to talk about.
Yeah, yep. And okay, so I feel connected to a value here because I think I sort of, if I get into a place of spontaneity or improvisation, if I can get into a place where I'm feeling pretty effortless or aimless, and if I'm not trying too hard to get somewhere, then I'm pretty sure I'll be able to sort of say something that needs to be said or listen to myself say it.
So you notice you're putting a lot of effort into this, and you feel like if you could relax and be more spontaneous, that maybe something would come easier.
Yeah, that's not quite it actually. I think what I was saying, I think, is that I think this is me being effortless. And if anything, there's I want to do a bit of searching, sort of like actually I could really say something here. You know, what is it that I want to say to the three of you, or who? You know, there's an opportunity here to speak, or you know, even to influence, you know, to coerce, to manipulate, to shape, to build. You know, so what is it that I want to build here? Maybe I should think about that.
So it's not that you're putting a lot of effort into this. There's a lot of options for you, and you're just trying to figure out what might that be and how can you contribute.
Yeah. I think contribute was the word I was sort of looking for. Yeah. I find a kind of template appearing, which is like contributing is something that's always seems to happen in the future for me. So it's like, okay, what am I doing here? The story goes, kind of preparing for contribution.
So you're preparing for contribution, and you notice that it's frequently out in the future for you.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that reminds me of this means end thing that Edwin was pointing to. Noticing holding my breath. Yeah. My mind is sort of settled into a place where it's sort of stuck on the idea of not doing. Like, what am I not doing here? Or what can I not do? That's time. Yeah, there's nothing else that's sort of there.
So you said you were stuck in a place of not doing. I think I got that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Kathy. I feel pretty heard. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I asked Anne already. I asked Edwin. We're not supposed to go back to listening.
Can you speak anyone you want? You can go back to Ben if you want.
Okay, yeah, because Ben hasn't listened to me yet. Okay. Ben, would you be willing to listen?
Yes, listening. Yeah.
So I'm appreciating that I'm starting to feel a little bit more relaxed, and I can really relate to Anne with this fear of maybe not hearing somebody fully.
hearing you saying you're beginning to feel more relaxed or feeling more relaxed, and also relating to Anne and fear of, well, not hearing somebody fully, not listening to somebody fully.
And so then I know that that's my need to make a deep contribution, and wondering if somebody doesn't feel heard, am I hurting them in some way?
And so I think you were kind of looking at that fear and linking that, okay, I know what that is. It's because I have this need to make a contribution, make a deep contribution. And the question comes up, well, so am I hurting somebody? You know, if I don't listen well, or if I don't hear them well.
Yes, and there's also a part of me that thinks it's failing if I haven't made the best contribution I can make.
And so there's also this question of failure that comes up for you. If I'm not making, if you're not making the best contribution that you can make, then the question of failure is coming up.
Yeah. And there's also the piece where I can understand why somebody would be hesitant to speak up about not being heard.
Right. And so you're also understanding and say, well, you know, I can see why somebody might be hesitant, you know, or you can see why somebody might be hesitant not to speak up if they don't feel heard.
Yes, I think people are afraid of hurting somebody's feelings, or they have difficulty standing up for themselves. And that's why they might not speak up.
Yes, that sort of, that sounds to me like kind of empathy in kind of practice, or kind of imagining the position of yourself or the position of the other. You know, I think you're imagining, well, why might somebody not speak up if they're not feeling heard? Maybe because they're worried about hurting the other person.
Or they just have difficulty speaking up for themselves.
Or yeah, or it might not be that they're worried about hurting the other person, but they may not be able to speak up for themselves.
Right. Yeah. So now I'm wondering, how can that be addressed? Right. Only because I like to solve problems, or things that might be a problem.
Yeah, that's interesting. So noticing your animation around that, and this kind of flow of energy, your smile. It's like, okay, well, I want to address this, you know, solve this as a problem. You know, if somebody's not saying that they feel heard, you know, what do we do with that? What can you do with that?
Right. Yeah. And then, but the other part of me is like, I don't have to do anything. You know, this is all taken care of, and I can just be here.
And I think you mean in this particular time and place, in this particular circle, there's not something you have to act on here. You can just be here because it's being taken care of. Is your thought? Right.
And somebody once told me, a supervisor had many, many moons ago, you know, don't come to me with a problem unless you have a solution. So that's been kind of a guiding principle for me, that if I have a problem, you know, coming to somebody with a problem is complaining unless I can offer some options.
So you're speaking about this principle and remembering that it came from a supervisor whom I'm imagining is quite influential, kind of role model for you. And so the principle is, you know, well, don't bring a question, don't bring a problem unless you have a solution to it.
Right. And so that has been something that I'm very careful of, you know, not to complain, not to talk about people. And I notice that if I'm complaining or talking about people, then there's something I need that I'm not getting.
And so I think you're linking this to needs as well, and saying, so something you like to do or value highly is sort of not complaining or kind of taking problems to people or about people. And so if you find yourself doing that, it's kind of indicative for you that there's some frustration or there's some need that isn't being met.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Thanks. I'm wondering about the time. So we're just coming up to 10:02. So I was going to ask the group, should we go for another 5 minutes, or should we take 10 minutes to debrief, to speak in a less structured way? What's your sense?
Fine with whatever you want to do. You're muted, Anne.
I think we've got 12 minutes till we go back to the main room. So
I have 11. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's time for someone else to have a turn first, I would have thought. But
yeah.
Up to you. I don't mind.
Yeah, I'll go with that if there are no opposing feelings. I was listening, so I become the speaker. Edwin, will you listen?
I'm just going to send this broadcast message. Yep, listening.
Thanks. Just setting a timer. Yeah. Yeah, so continuing from what Kathy was saying, left a little bit with a sense of sort of a narrative, sort of an evolution of the story that Kathy was telling, which had felt like it was sort of interrupted at the 5 minutes. And so there's part of me questioning or wondering, what was coming next, or where was the story going?
Yes, you're just wanting to pick up where you left off. You're just wondering what was going to emerge next. You're just sitting with that.
Yeah, and when I say yeah, so yeah. So noticing that wasn't really what I mean, that was also very true, but it wasn't really what I said. And so like I've just taken this opportunity just to let you know, to see what it's like to let you know, actually, no, I didn't say that.
Oh, so that's not what you said. And you're like, hey, this is an opportunity to say that that's not what I said. So
noticing kind of quite a lot of relief or kind of laughter as I'm saying that.
Because humor and relief that you can say that.
Yes, yeah. So one is, well, story that it did happen in an empathy circle actually a couple of weeks ago. It was with just opening the circle with somebody who sort of had been practicing with, and sort of in that first 5 minutes, there was just a moment where she was reflecting me, and I think there was just a degree of elaboration. I was like, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I said. And I just couldn't say in that moment with the four of us, no, that's not really what I meant. It somehow would have felt like a very, well, maybe this links to Anne's respect as well. It would have felt quite disrespectful to say that, or quite aggressive or something.
So you were in a circle where someone didn't really reflect what you were saying, and you felt like you couldn't really say that because it would have been disrespectful, or it might have, been problematic with them.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then, but I'm, looking back now, I'm not really sure what my own motive was. So was I more judging her reflection, like, well, no, you didn't reflect that well, we're trying to reflect each other well? Or was it really coming from more of an interior kind of felt place of, I don't think you understood, or I don't think you got me. And I'm not sure.
So you're trying to understand, like, what was it that you didn't feel heard? Was it kind of at a deep level you didn't really feel heard? Was it more of a, hey, you just didn't do a good reflection? It wasn't a well done reflection, so maybe more judgmental kind of.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder, I mean, there's another way of, I suppose I have an image of myself in some situations, for example, speaking to my partner, where it becomes the most important thing in the world. Oh, I'm noticing Michelle is here.
Sorry, Edwin, do you mind putting me through to?
I just made the link, yeah. Go ahead, Ben. She should
Thanks.
be.
no, that she must have got locked out or something, and then becoming back into the yeah, there are definitely times where it becomes the most, for myself, envisioning myself, it becomes the most important thing in the world, that some particular point is understood by the other person, that they're really able to get it. And so I recognize that in myself as well. Sometimes, I'm sure sometimes my partner could repeat back to me 3 times what I've said, and I'll still be like, no, I don't, you haven't got it. You don't understand. That's not somebody else, that's me.
Yeah, so it's you, just when the person just is not getting you to your satisfaction. Sometimes they really get it, or they can just say it over and over again, but that's really not it. And you see, it's you who are there trying to make that decision, whether you feel heard or not.
Right, yeah. And I think sometimes in those moments I catch myself, and then I'm like, well, actually, what is important here? Why is it so important for that to be understood, by that person?
And so you question yourself, like, why is it so important that person really understand and get that piece, that thing that you're wanting to share? And why is that? You're just sort of sitting with the question, why it's important.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, there's more to say there, but that's time. Yeah, thank you, I feel fully heard.
Got a lot more to say. Yeah, so we got we have about 5 minutes. I guess we'll continue. Speak to Anne, and then yeah, it's that whole, I have that sense too, like I feel like I've sort of stagnated in terms of my listening skills. Like I want to have that, I want to just listen better, more clearly. And I know when I've heard someone well, because it's sort of like a whole body experience. It's like I sort of hear them in my whole body, and I reflect the whole body reflection. And I feel like I'm not growing in getting, doing that more better.
So I hear you kind of recognizing something in what Ben was saying for yourself, and that you'd feel like your own listening skills have stagnated a bit. And that when you really do have that sense that you've really heard somebody, you can feel it in your whole body. It's an embodied feeling.
I think part of it is that I usually am the one that's sort of the responsible for the overall circle. If it's a circle, or like here, I'm not responsible. There's people, I'm tracking all the other rooms. And it's sort of part of my consciousness is not present, because I'm keeping track of other things. So maybe that's part of it, that my consciousness is always divided in terms of responsibility versus, people are kind of joining. Yeah, so did you want to get back to your room, or you're just dropped?
No, we just finished it on a very high note, and we thought to take a 4 minutes break before joining so that.
Okay, so yeah, and
so I'll just reflect that bit back to you, Edwin. So that you're seeing yourself that maybe this is due to the fact that you are actually doing other roles at the time, that you have your mind and your sight occupied on not just like an overall responsibility for the situation, which in this particular circle right now you don't, but you do have an oversight for the whole thing, and you are being the tech host.
Yeah. So, and maybe having some empathy circles just on how do we listen more deeply, to just have a space to just think about that, to go in depth would be good. To maybe that would sort of be something to do to kind of explore that. Yeah, so I'm just thinking that is maybe a topic for a circle.
So you're taking this sense that you find in yourself, you're experiencing, that is guiding you to maybe have topics in circles on how do we listen that bit more deeply.
Yeah.
To improve our listening skills.
Yeah, and I do feel distracted. Someone came in. I'm keeping track of the time. I got to. It's like I can't be present. It's like I got to take part in some circles where I don't do anything. I joined Lou's group, you know, his support group, and he's totally in charge. And it feels so good just to have no responsibility. When I have responsibility, I always feel constricted, you know, because I got to kind of feel like I got to kind of hold the thing together. So I'm just kind of thinking about that.
So it seems to me that you've got the perfect description of how you've solved your own question by what you need is actually not to have any responsibilities, and you're, for example, when you've joined Lou's group and not had to do anything, and then doubtless your listening skills will blossom and flourish concurrently.
Yeah, to be clear, it's his support group that he does on Fridays. So he's totally responsible. I have zero responsibility. It always feels so good to go into groups where you have no responsibility except to show up.
So I'm hearing you're talking about how good it is and how light and joyous you can feel on the few rare occasions when you have no responsibility and you're just there as a participant.
And with that, I feel fully heard, and I'm closing all the rooms, so everybody will be popping back in. So thanks, Anne.
So along with feeling fully heard, you're actually carrying on with your job and closing the rooms.
Right. That's it. Everybody will be popping in about 40 seconds. They should all be here. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ben. And thank you, Kathy.
Thanks everyone. Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Edwin.
Yeah, we got about 17 seconds. So Larry, you'll be doing this next part. Is that right? Or maybe he's taking a pause right now. I think your group.
I'm back. Thank you. All right.
And you'll be, everybody's still got to come back yet, but I just wanted to confirm that you're taking this next.
Thank you, Edwin.
Okay, there's still. Yep, so everybody's back. Okay, Larry, you're.
All right, so welcome back. And now we would like for each one to take about a minute to share your experience and insights from the Empathy Circle, and to look at how one of your values relate to empathy and culture of empathy, or whatever is alive in you. And I'll start with Ben. Can you share what's alive in you, or how one of your values related to this empathy circle?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to say that I'm feeling, feeling a lot of things, but on the surface as well, pretty serene, pretty calm, pretty sort of at the beginning of something, sort of after an hour and a half of an empathy cycle, kind of feel ready to sort of begin to speak or begin to connect. And one of the values I chose was vitality. And so in this moment, I have kind of an image of the space of empathy being cultivated, just allowing us to kind of connect to what's alive in which resonates with what's alive in the other people that we're with. And so there's kind of an image of life meeting life as part of this process.
Thank you, Ben. Kathy Kidd, would you share?
Sure. I'm feeling happy and relaxed, glad to be here. So glad I found this group, and looking forward to honing my skills more, especially my listening skills. I loved the exercise of reevaluating. For me, it was reevaluating my values. I really enjoyed that. So Yeah, I'm feeling complete.
Thank you, Kathy. Prasanna, will you share?
Yes. I don't know how this 1.5 hours just went by. So it's that amazing, it just went by. And uh, learning is a very high value for me. And that's why I joined the circle. And in the breakout room with Larry, Serena, being able to hear each other and the stories which we share and the commonness also amongst each other, the values which we are carrying, how we are passionate about life, nature, the wilderness, and able to know that we are from different parts of the world, but we are so connected by these threads. It was just so amazing. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Prasanna. Joelle in Oregon, would you share?
We had a very, our group went really, really deep into trauma and shadow work and some fascinating stuff. And just always back to the fact that empathy heals and builds new neural networks in our brains, and it just never seeks to surprise me. Thank you.
Thank you, Joelle. Julia Cantini, please, would you share?
Yes, that's me, Julia. Thank you, Larry. I was with Joel, and yeah, our group, I think, was amazing, really, to have this conversation, these very new, interesting terms I wasn't familiar with, and now that I have to look up online because I'm so curious about psychology and these new concepts that I've learned. And yeah, this is, I mean, this learning is just one of the main phases of empathy circles. And yeah, it's amazing. I'm really grateful for this work. And yeah.
Thank you, Julia. Sally, would you share?
Okay, yeah, we had a real interesting group. It, I really was pretty excited, and because of the people and learning stuff, and that, well, when I took the facilitator training the first time, I was real lost with the values, and I'm just beginning to get a grasp on the values for this time through. We talked about the political divide, and that actually the less educated Republicans and Democrats were more equal in taking COVID inoculations, and anyway, different stuff that was interesting and profound.
Thank you, Sally. Eric, would you share?
So a value of mine that I was really focused on is what I call integrity, but other people in my group even call it authenticity, or even this concept of living in alignment and like acting in alignment with what's true. Kind of reminds me of what Ben was saying of like life meeting, like life energy meeting life energy, just like what is true is like flowing out. And God, it feels like weird to even say, but the energetic field that's like created in that space feels so spiritual to me. And I was starting to like touch into that. Like, and I was like, this is so freaking cool. I just love this so much. So really, really positive for me.
Thank you, Eric. Cynthia, would you share?
Yes, and I want to build on what Eric was saying. I was in a wonderful group with Eric and Graham and Lou, and I just authenticity, integrity, as Eric is talking about, is so incredibly important to me. And I just really felt that within the group. I feel like the empathy circles really encourage that, and that people exemplified that. And it's not only so important to me, it just felt so good to be with others who were practicing and modeling that. And in fact, I'm getting over a concussion. And so linking back with what Joelle said, I feel it's healing my brain, actually. So it was really good to be in that space and feel that beautiful spiritual energy, that connection, that spiritual field, and feel the healing happen.
Wow, thank you, Cynthia. Cecilia?
Wow, that's amazing. Sharing all of you, and I can just join in. I had a wonderful time with my group, and this caring for each other, for the nature, and not even healing within, and what you just say, Larry, turning the inside out, the kingdom of within, and we'll just turn it to the outside world. And thank you all so much. I'm really happy to have been joining again. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cecilia. Now I'm going to go around the screen again and ask the trainers and trainees. I'm going to start at the top. It looks like Anne is the first one. I hope I'm doing this right. If I'm doing it wrong, punish me. Anne, would you share?
Yeah, it was a really interesting circle and exploration together. Best possible use of 1.5 hours of my life. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Anne. Celine?
Yes, well, I still in that aura of wonder at the connections that we can make here with people from all over the world and sharing values together and giving each other our full attention with respect. There's nothing better. So it's lovely. Thank you all.
Thank you, Celine. Dominique?
Yeah, I just want to echo what everyone else said. Like, I feel very light, and the past hour and a half felt very therapeutic for me. And our group went super deep. And I love that. And I never felt like I was overburdening anyone. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful. Also, Cynthia, thanks for being here with the concussion, because I know how hard it is. So shout out to you.
Thank you, Dominique. Graham?
Thank you, Larry. For me, I sensed that we'd explored a very valuable area, which was, and one of the concepts was like a transition or a chrysalis concept, where we transition from what we're experiencing in our world today and getting into a more empathic world. The other thing that I think about as a facilitator, and this is something which has a lot to do with the empathy circle structure, but it's something that I watch with interest and wonder what my role is in influencing. But we go through a period where I can sense that tension gets high or is high because we're really wondering where we're at in this process. So our tension might go up, but then our tensions start to slowly go down as we begin to feel that we belong and that we have some safe connections with other people. And that, getting that down to that sort of stable point is what's of interest to me. And I thank you for the experience.
Thank you, Graham. And Bill?
Yeah, well, we went pretty deep. We talked about veganism, and we also, one thing came up for me is the sort of the kind of life choices that happen in extreme situations when you can't, both decisions are bad, like a Sophie's choice. So having had some experience, not making that decision, but and having some experience with things like that, the reason I'm here is to prevent having to, so the only answer is not having to put yourself in that position. That's my feeling. And so I really appreciate everybody here who's working to create a different sort of conditioning, a different society where those sorts of choices, we don't have to make them. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. And Lou?
Yeah, I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude. So I was in a circle with Cynthia and Eric and Graham, and just feeling so much gratitude for meeting Eric and Cynthia and spending time with them, getting to know them, and Graham's facilitation. And I think the value for me is openness. That's what was coming through most strongly. You know, openness about myself, being open, people being open, me being open, and being open to others. So both of those sides of openness, I think, is a very strong value, and I experienced it quite deeply, and it was very nourishing. So just feeling a lot of gratitude.
Thank you, Lou. Michelle?
Thanks, Larry. We had a beautiful circle with Bill and Sally and with Mina, and it was one of those circles where like time slows down and it speeds up at the same time, if that makes any sense at all. Yeah, interesting and profound, I think, was like, yeah, was what Sally had shared there was like, yeah, that like the range of topics, and then a few of the things that I heard said like changed me a little bit as a person, just a small, like it changed how my perspective, like, yeah, of the world a little bit. And I'm really, really grateful for them types of experience. I come away like feeling so, yeah, full of that wonder and aliveness. I love it. Like, so just really, I'm really grateful to everybody that was on Circle.
Thank you, Michelle. And Dean?
Well, I'm resonating with everything everyone said. And in our circle, that resonation and cross-pollination was an amazing thing. And the honesty to sit in the process in a way that enables others to feel you, and then for you to be able to feel them and resonate with them and actually reflect them to their fulfillment, so that you actually have this righteous sensation rather than a toxic sensation, because we live in a very toxic culture, and what we're trying to develop here is a righteous way of resonating with each other, to build this mutuality and this ability to walk in each other's feet, walk in each other's shoes in a healthy way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. And thank you all. And I would like to say, it seems like we were all in the same circle. No, it really does. It's just such a precious experience of allowing empathy to be alive in us. And it's in us. It's not in the book, you know, it's not in wherever, it's in each one of us. And when we come together in a safe space and share that openly with that trust and that peace, it's such a beautiful experience. And Anne, I was like in tears when Anne said, I can't think of a better way to spend an hour and a half. Really, it's beautiful. So now I want to turn this over to the gentleman who created this amazing creation, Mr. Edwin Rutch. And I hope
I was just reporting back, yeah, my 1 minute. For me, it's what's kind of standing out is the empathy, and how empathy and mutuality is a positive spiral or a cycle. So that the more empathy, the more mutuality, the more presence builds trust, and the trust creates more openness and authenticity, which creates more trust, which creates more intimacy and care. And so there's a whole positive, constructive spiral that gets created, versus a spiral of, not being heard, the fear, the anxiety. And for me, it's like my parents went through World War II, kind of the horrors of war. And that's something that I think that lack of empathy ends up in, and we see that all over the world. So I really appreciate hearing everybody's, insights about how empathy relates to, how their values relate to empathy. And with that, I'll pass it on to Celine, who is going to close us out here.
Yes. So first I'm going to review what we did today. We focused on the core values of culture of empathy. We explored our values related to empathy and culture of empathy. We participated in an empathy circle. So you are probably catching on, new people, that this is a learn by doing experience. And so next week, we will be practicing further with facilitating and being part of circles. And there will be assignments. You'll get an email asking for your feedback, and we read the feedback forms and address the questions you have. You'll also be given a list of empathy buddies. So you can make a phone call with your empathy buddy. And this is a way to create support as you become, train more and facilitate circles. And it may be your empathy buddy sometime will be your co-facilitator in a circle. So do call your empathy buddy, have a conversation. And we will see you next week.
Before we do that, is there any trainer comments, anything from the trainer, sort of wrap up? And I will add something that I just put the link up. I will put the link into the feedback form, which is there. And so next week, you will be facilitating a short empathy circle. So you definitely want to check out how to present the how-to. You'll be introducing the how-to. You'll get a bit of feedback on how your intro was, and then you'll be facilitating like a short 20-minute empathy circle. So you definitely want to sort of practice a little bit on preparing for that. And see if there's any other trainers. Do you want to?
Dean had something he wanted to say.
I'd just like to yet again thank those, especially there was somebody in our circle whose English is their second language, and it's so much harder doing this work when it's your second language. And thank you very much for your tolerance of me, especially in my circle when I speak in such flowery terms sometimes. And I really did put Julia through a lot, and I'd like to apologise to her and thank her for her efforts on my behalf. Thank you.
So I wanted to say something too. Actually, along those same lines, I wanted to thank people who are from time zones that are where it's very late, who are making the effort to stay up late to do this. That's amazing, and so grateful, because your voices and your presence, your spirit's very important. It's an important contribution. The point that I wanted to make, and this is about facilitation and the role of the facilitator, and it's that one of the things that's unusual about an empathy circle is that the facilitator participates in the process. So in most processes, the facilitator is, kind of outside the process and you're helping other people do it. But in empathy circles, the facilitator both takes a speaking turn and listening turns. And because the facilitator participates in that way, you actually have a big effect on the circle. So when it's your turn to speak, if you are open and share something vulnerable, you are cueing the others in the circle that this is a norm, that this circle is for this. If you join a conversation and you see what kind of conversation is happening in this place, well, in an empathy circle, the kind of conversation that happens has to do with the people who are there, and the facilitator is one of the people. So you have an opportunity to model openness and vulnerability and honesty. And that's true also in modeling, what a reflection is, and what empathy is, by how you hold the circle and how you invite people into it, and how you respond to people actually who are having difficulty in the circle. All of those are a way of embodying a culture of empathy and helping people understand what that is. So I just wanted to say that to kind of just raise your awareness about the role of the facilitator in creating a culture of empathy.
Thank you, Lou. Edwin, is there more that you want to say?
I think Bill has something.
Yeah. I just wanted to say very briefly that we talked a lot about history and 10,000 years of the particular culture that we exist in, which some people indicate as a dominator culture. And we are attempting to change that. And so I just wanted to make people aware, first of all, to enjoy the profundity of being involved in changing that, and also the difficulties. And so I have great appreciation for you all. And that's it.
Okay, Anne, anything? Just final comment?
Mine was a little technical thing that mine went to, that one of the roles as facilitator that you have in the circle is to be responsible for the timing of people's turns. So if you come with something that you can use to time, and a way to signal to people when their time is up.
Yeah,
it
that's
might
for
be easier
next
if
week,
you pre-prepare.
Right. For example, another good one to bring is remember to pause. You can say it, but sometimes I found that just kind of holding it up there kind of helps. Yeah, helps too. So in case people keep going on and on. Okay, that was it, Celine. I did post the one value. If people would post not one value, but just one feeling that you have, if you post that in there.
Yes, here we go. So you can post one feeling if you want. There we go. We're starting to see these beautiful feelings that people are leaving with. And then we like to end with jazz hands. So everybody give you a jazz hand, smile, jazz hands.
It's our group portrait.
Yes.
Get everybody in there. Mirrored, it's mirrored motions.
Everyone.
Okay, see you next week.
Hi, everyone.
Sending out
Thank
your
you.
everybody calls shortly. Bye.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
everyone.
Till next time.
Thank you.